Tonight, 7 disturbing true stories. Once you hear them, the nightmares start.
What's going on, guys? Sinister Tailies here. Before we get into tonight's stories, just a quick reminder. If you enjoy the video, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I always love reading your thoughts and reactions down in the comments section. If you have your own true story you'd like to share, check the links in the video description. You'll find my email, Facebook, and Twitter there. You can message me on any of those platforms, and I'll do my best to feature your story in a future video as soon as I can. If you do send something in, please include how you'd like to be credited, the title of your story if it has one, and any themes or tags you think fit. With all that out of the way, let's dive straight into today's collection of true scary stories. I hope you enjoy them, and as always, thank you so much for watching. My name is Francisco, and when I was around 19 or 20, I worked at a sporting goods store during my summers off from college. I'd started there in my senior year of high school and stayed for about 3 years total. When I wasn't at school, I was living with my parents. It was a smaller store staff-wise. On a normal shift, there'd be maybe 5 to 7 employees, usually 2 on registers, and the others scattered through the departments doing stocking, customer help, that kind of thing. During my first summer back from college, there was a fairly new hire named Emma. She was about my age, short, dark hair, and seemed nice enough, though I didn't really know much about her. We'd worked together a handful of times and exchanged small talk, but we weren't exactly friends outside of work. One night, we both happened to be scheduled until around 9 p.m. I'd been working in one department, she'd been in another. As we were clocking out, she asked if I'd driven there. I told her yes. She then asked if I could give her a ride home. I didn't mind, but I asked where she lived first. It turned out to be a nearby city, maybe 5 minutes out of my normal route home. No big deal, so I said sure. She gave me the address and we drove over. It was an older-looking apartment complex. She mentioned she lived there with her boyfriend. She thanked me for the ride. I wished her a good night and headed home. I barely thought about it afterward. The next day I was back at work on an earlier shift. It was summer, so my availability was basically wide open. Emma wasn't on the schedule that day. Around noon, the store was really quiet, and I was in the back stocking shelves near the baseball gear. A guy walked into the aisle and immediately started striding toward me with this intense look. He had a short buzz cut, wasn't very tall but looked pretty solid and strong. He marched right up to me and demanded to know who I thought I was. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about. He said he was Emma's boyfriend and accused me of trying to take his girl. That's when it clicked. Either Emma hadn't told him the full story, or this guy was wildly jealous and paranoid. I really did not want to be dragged into their relationship issues. He got close enough that he was in my face, asking if I thought I was tough. I told him to calm down, that nothing had happened. Emma had asked for a ride home after work, and I'd simply given her one. He snapped that his car was working fine and she could have asked him. I told him I hadn't known that, and that I didn't even know she had a boyfriend until she mentioned it on that ride home. Strangely enough, that seemed to diffuse him almost immediately. I repeated that I wasn't trying to steal his girlfriend and he had nothing to worry about. He gave me this last look and said I'd better not let him catch me tripping again, then walked off. Afterward, I was shaken and honestly surprised at how angry he'd gotten over nothing. I also started wondering if Emma was stuck in a bad, controlling relationship. A couple of days later, I worked a shift with her again. When I saw her, I went over, said hi, and told her what her boyfriend had done. She apologized and said, "Sorry, he gets like that sometimes." I asked if she was okay. That's when she told me she'd actually broken up with him the day before, which would have been the day after he confronted me. She'd also just moved back in with her parents. I told her I was sorry she had to go through that. She said she was fine and was actually happy to be moving on. After that, we went our separate ways for the rest of the shift. That night, she got off around 7 p.m. I worked until 9 again. When my shift ended, I clocked out and headed across the mostly empty parking lot to my car. As I started the engine and pulled out, I realized another car that had been parked not far from mine was pulling out right behind me. The lot was almost empty, so I'd noticed that car right away when I walked out. I made a few extra turns, 3 or 4 in total, just to test whether I was actually being followed. Every time I turned, the car turned too. We stopped at a light, and I checked my mirror. I could see enough of the driver's face to recognize Emma's ex. I kept driving until I reached my street, then started looping around the block, not really sure what to do. He stayed right behind me. Finally, I decided to just pull into my driveway and deal with it. I parked, got out, and as soon as I did, he pulled in after me. I didn't stick around to see what he was going to do. I sprinted around the side of the house into the backyard. My parents usually left the sliding glass door unlocked, so I slipped into the house that way, locked it, and pulled the blinds shut. When I peeked through the front window a moment later, I saw him getting back into his car. Then he drove off. From that closer look, I was able to confirm for sure it was Emma's ex. I thought about calling the police, but decided not to. I just hoped he would realize there was no reason to target me. I didn't work for the next few days and just enjoyed some time off. One of those days, I went to a big mall nearby with 3 of my friends. We were shopping and just hanging out when I spotted Emma's ex again. He was sitting alone at a table in the food court, angled partly toward us. This definitely didn't feel like a coincidence. I pointed him out to my friends and told them the whole story. They immediately said we should go confront him, but I didn't want anything escalating into a fight or something worse, so I refused. We stayed there for a while, keeping an eye on him. Eventually we left, and I noticed he got up and followed us out. He tailed us around the mall for about 40 minutes. It was deeply unnerving. I couldn't believe he was this fixated on me. Did he really think I was the reason for their breakup? Later, we finally left the mall in our cars. I didn't see him again the rest of that day. The next time I worked, Emma happened to be on the schedule too. I asked how she was. She told me she was doing well and that in 2 weeks she'd be moving to Seattle. We lived in California, so that was a pretty big move for her. I told her that was awesome, but then I said, "Your ex is stalking me now." She looked surprised and asked why he'd be doing that. I told her I figured he blamed me for the breakup. She said that was ridiculous and that I had nothing to do with it. I told her she should let him know that, but she said she had him blocked on everything and wasn't going to reach out. That's when it really sank in just what kind of guy he was. He was using me as an outlet for his anger, nothing more. That night I got off work and headed to my car again. His car was parked right beside mine. At that point, I was more angry than scared. When I got within about 10 feet of my car, he jumped out of his and started charging me, full of rage. I asked him what he thought he was doing, but he didn't say a word. He got right in my face and swung. I dodged a bit, but his fist still clipped the side of my head. I swung back and missed. He nailed me with another punch, and from there it just went downhill for me. I'd never really been in a serious fight before. He clearly had. He hit me multiple times. I think I only landed 1 or 2 weak shots on him that didn't seem to faze him at all. I went down, and he kept hitting and kicking me while I was on the ground. Eventually he stopped, walked back to his car, and drove off. I was just grateful he didn't do anything worse while I was down. As soon as I could, I pulled myself together enough to call the police. They came out, took my statement, and I got checked out by medical personnel on scene. I was lucky, just bruises and scrapes, no concussion or broken bones. The officers said they would look into the guy. The next day, I heard he'd been arrested. Turned out he already had a warrant out for failure to appear on some other charge. Pretty sure it was theft. He had a record. I also filed assault charges against him. I was incredibly relieved to know he was off the streets and wouldn't be able to stalk me anymore. For a while I was furious that I'd been dragged into all of that over something so minor. But looking back, I'm mostly just grateful that both Emma and I came out of it okay. As you can probably tell, this is a brand new Reddit account, but I've actually been on Reddit for about 5 years. My old account was great. I had friends and a decent little audience for my writing. Then I met one person who ruined all of that. He first messaged me pretending to be a woman in a similar situation to mine, a blended family with adopted and biological kids. We started talking about that, and it seemed completely normal at first. Then out of nowhere, he commented that my house looked really nice. I froze. I had never posted my address. I had never shared pictures of my house, my family, or even my street. I didn't have him on any other social media, only Reddit. My account didn't even list what country I lived in. I tried to brush it off, but more messages came. Then he started sending links and actual images of my street address. I blocked him immediately and went through my entire account, post by post, comment by comment, trying to see if I'd ever accidentally revealed anything personal. There was nothing, no identifiers, no location hints. But after I blocked him, new accounts started messaging me. These ones were openly threatening. They said that if I didn't send money or personal photos, my address would be handed over to dangerous people who could come hurt me and my family. I blocked each account as it appeared, over and over. I didn't go to the police. Instead, I contacted a few close friends, the kind I trusted more than I trusted the authorities, to help keep an eye on my house and the kids. But the images kept coming. Street view style shots of my home, from different angles, from multiple burner accounts. It escalated to the point where I felt like I had no choice but to completely disappear from Reddit. I went totally off-grid from the platform. I still have no idea how that person got my information. I'd been careful. I still am careful. I'm skeptical of almost anyone I talk to online now. After about a year away, though, I decided that I wasn't going to let fear control every part of my life. I missed writing and I missed telling my stories. So here I am again, on a new account. I'm still cautious, but I refuse to let that person take away something I love. Back in 2018, when I was 19 and a sophomore at a large university, something happened that still haunts me. I just moved into an off-campus apartment complex. Unfortunately, as a female living alone in my room, I ended up on the first floor. From the very first day, the place gave me bad vibes. I can't really explain it, just a heavy, uneasy feeling. My bedroom was at the very end of the apartment, right next to the patio. The sliding glass door opened almost directly into my room. For over a month before the main incident, I constantly felt like I was being watched. Anytime I walked to my car or went to the gym in the complex, I'd move quickly and find myself checking over my shoulder, spine prickling, even when everything looked normal. One night, my roommates and I had all gone to bed. I had work early the next morning and was trying to fall asleep before it got too late. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of my doorknob turning. Thankfully, I'd gotten into the habit of locking my bedroom door every night after a horrible lucid dream once made me paranoid about someone walking in. I sat up in bed and stared at the door, listening. After a minute or two of silence, I started to think maybe I'd imagined it. I lay back down. A few minutes later, it happened again. This time, I knew exactly what I was hearing, the soft, slow rattle of someone trying the doorknob. I shot straight up and stared at the base of the door. I could see the faint shadows of feet on the other side. Then 3 soft knocks. Without really thinking, I called out, "Who's there?" I assumed it had to be one of my roommates. Maybe they needed something. No answer, just silence. I grabbed my phone and called the roommate I thought might play a prank like that. She picked up after 3 rings, groggy and confused. I'd obviously woken her up. I told her to lock her bedroom door immediately because someone was in the apartment. Our other roommate had her phone off for the night, so we banged on the adjoining wall to wake her up. None of us felt safe stepping into the hall. We had no idea who had been at my door or if they were still inside. Our second roommate, half asleep and confused by the noise, thought it was morning and that someone had locked themselves out. She came out of her room before fully processing what we'd said. As soon as I heard her door open, I unlocked mine and stepped out too, just to make sure she'd be okay. The three of us checked the entire apartment together. It was empty. Then we reached the sliding glass door by my room. It was unlocked. The curtains had been moved aside. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. Someone had come in through that patio door and stood at my locked bedroom door for at least 10 to 15 minutes, trying to get in. We called the police and filed a report. They didn't find anything useful, and nothing ever came of it. I was so disturbed that I couldn't sleep in that bedroom again. From there, to keep it short, the weirdness only escalated whenever I was around. We ended up calling the police a second time when we heard someone lingering outside my roommate's window at around 2 o'clock in the morning. By then, I was too afraid to sleep in my own room, so all three of us decided to sleep in her room that night. We were all woken up by the sounds outside the window. We called the police again. They didn't catch anyone, but they did find footprints in the dirt around that window. The strangest part was that absolutely nothing happened when I wasn't at the apartment. No noises, no disturbances, nothing. It was only when I was there. It felt like someone was specifically watching me, trying to get to me. They never stole anything. They never tried any of my roommates' doors, even though both had been unlocked that first night. It was just my door, just my window, just my room. The creepiest part came a bit later. My boyfriend at the time, now my husband, lived in a different city. He would drive down on weekends to visit me. Shortly after the break-in, he noticed something was off with his car while he was driving, just a strange feeling from one of the tires. He took it into a shop to get it checked out. The mechanics told him that in all their years, they'd never seen anything like it. Someone had removed 4 of the 5 lug nuts on 2 of his tires. The only thing keeping those wheels from coming completely off at highway speed and possibly killing him was 1 remaining lug on each tire. It was intentional, deliberate, vicious. I don't know if the same person who came into my apartment did that to his car, but the timing was more than suspicious. I still think about it. This happened about 2 years ago. I'm a woman and live alone in an apartment building. Like a lot of people, I have an Instagram where I post fairly regularly, maybe once a month on average. I enjoy sharing pictures, and I'm used to the usual random bots or the occasional weird DM, but nothing truly bad had ever happened. Until this. One day I opened Instagram and saw that I had a direct message from one of my followers. His name was Tim. I didn't follow him back, and I had no idea how long he'd been following me. I honestly hadn't noticed him before. The first message was him asking if I wanted to come hang out with him. It was immediately strange. We'd never spoken before. I didn't know him at all. I didn't respond. The next day, he messaged again. This time he said he could pick me up so we could hang out. I replied politely and said no thanks, that I appreciated the offer but wasn't interested. At that point, it should have been obvious I didn't want to talk. He tried again to persuade me, but I just ignored him. The following day, there were no new messages from him. I figured that was the end of it. That night after work, I went grocery shopping. I don't have a rigid shopping schedule. I just go whenever I need things. This time it happened to be around 8 o'clock p.m. The store wasn't very busy. I shopped for about 20 minutes and then headed out into the parking lot. It was mostly quiet, though there were still a few people coming and going. I walked to my car and saw that another vehicle was parked right next to mine. I started loading my groceries from the cart into my trunk. As I did, the door of the car next to me opened. A man got out. At first he looked like any other random shopper, but instead of heading toward the store, he walked straight toward me. I was confused until he called me by my first name and asked why I thought I could ignore him. My stomach dropped. I recognized him from his profile picture. This was Tim. He told me he was here now, and since we were together, we might as well hang out. I finally found my voice and asked him what he thought he was doing and how he even knew I'd be there. He claimed it was just a coincidence. I finished putting my groceries in my trunk and told him I had to get home. I shut the trunk and tried to move around him to get into the driver's seat. He grabbed my arm. He told me I was going to go with him. His grip hurt. I told him to let go, that he was hurting me, but he started dragging me toward his car. He was a lot stronger than I was. I immediately started screaming for help, as loudly as I could, telling him to let me go, yelling for someone to call the police. There were a few people in the lot, thankfully. They turned and saw what was happening. As soon as Tim realized people were watching, he let go and hissed at me to shut up. I bolted to my driver's side door, jumped in and locked it just as he reached for the handle. He tried to get in, but the doors were already locked. I didn't wait. I started the car and tore out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw him sprinting back to his car, but by the time he got in, I was already turning out of sight. I drove to a nearby area, went behind another store out of his line of sight, and then wove through random residential streets until I was sure no one was following me. Only then did I head home. I was so focused on getting away and making sure he couldn't follow me that it took me a while to remember to call the police. When I finally did, I told them what happened. Later, when I opened Instagram again, his account was gone, deleted. I never saw him or heard from him again. This next story still gives me chills whenever I think about it. It happened at least 5 years ago. I went out with a group of friends to a stand-up comedy show. I've always loved live comedy, and this place was a huge resort and spa near where I lived, down the road from a few casinos. I think it was designed for casino guests to stay at, but the bar and shows were open to anyone. The resort had an awesome bar and a bunch of suites. There were 6 of us total, 3 couples. We'd planned the night out months in advance, watch the show, hit the bar for drinks, then head back to separate suites for the night. Kind of a romantic weekend, but also a group trip. The rooms were great, hot tubs, plenty of space, everything you'd want for a getaway. I was really looking forward to soaking in hours after the show. The show itself was fantastic. Afterwards, around 10 or 11 p.m., we all went to the bar. You didn't have to be staying at the resort to drink there, and it was one of the more popular bars in the area. We were sitting together, laughing and talking, when a strange-looking man approached our table. He was tall, extremely skinny, with awful teeth. He had this odd, overly confident air about him. He asked how we'd liked the show. None of us answered at first. I think we were just taken aback by how sketchy he looked. I tried not to judge based on appearance alone, so I answered and told him the show was great. He started talking about the comedian in detail, and he actually knew his material and background really well. We ended up having a back and forth about it. He kept stressing how we all looked like real fans. I could tell my friends were getting annoyed, but I kept being polite and engaging with him. After a bit, he asked us if we'd like to meet the comic. We all looked at each other, shocked, and asked if he was serious. He said he could only take 2 of us, but insisted it would be worth it. My friends didn't trust the situation and turned it down. That left me and my girlfriend as the 2 who'd go. I know how sketchy that sounds, especially in hindsight, but in that moment, it didn't raise as many red flags as it probably should have. He didn't seem like he was lying. He spoke with a lot of confidence, like someone who knew the staff and backstage area. He said the comedian had some press obligations to handle, but that he could sneak us into the back where he was staying after midnight. He explained that the resort supposedly had special suites behind the scenes reserved for entertainers, bands, comedians, touring plays, and so on. It sounded plausible enough at the time. A few minutes before midnight, our friends headed back to their rooms, and my girlfriend and I walked to the back area where the man had told us to meet him. We both had a bad feeling almost immediately. There were no trespassing signs posted, and the area had that unmistakable employees-only vibe. It was dim, industrial, and clearly not meant for guests. We kept trying to reassure ourselves that we were invited, but it didn't help much. A few minutes after midnight, we were about to give up and leave when we heard a commotion down the narrow, dark alley behind the resort. As our eyes adjusted to the low light, we saw the same tall, sketchy man sprinting toward us at full speed. He ran right past us without saying a single word, shouldered open a back door, and left it hanging open behind him as he bolted away. Seconds later, 2 large security guards rounded the corner and shouted at us to freeze. My girlfriend and I instinctively looked behind us, expecting the guy to still be there, or anyone else, really. There was no one, just us, standing in a restricted area by an open door. We looked back and saw the guards now running at us, looking like they were ready to tackle. Before we fully processed what was happening, I was on the ground, and more guards were swarming us. 3 others joined in, and we were both restrained and escorted into a small back room. We told them over and over that we didn't know that man, that he'd approached us at the bar, and told us we could meet the comedian if we met him out back. We had no idea we were walking into what looked like a break-in. They were skeptical at first. We went back and forth like that for quite a while before they finally let us go. We'd been detained for a good amount of time, long enough that I'm not even sure it was completely legal, but that's what happened. Later, we found out that the strange man was apparently a stalker who had some kind of obsession with the comedian. I think security eventually caught him, but we never got any confirmation or official record. We also learned there was no special entertainer suite in the back of the resort at all. That part had been a complete lie, just like everything else he'd told us. What unsettles me the most isn't just that he was creepy. It's that we still have no idea what his true intentions were. Why lure us back there? Was he planning to frame us for something? Was he intending to use us as a distraction so he could get closer to the comedian? Or did he honestly believe, in whatever was going on in his mind, that he was actually friends with the guy and could introduce us? We never got answers. We just endured a night of uncomfortable detainment and confusion. I just hope that wherever that man is now, it's far, far away from us. This next incident happened on the last day of my internship. I was 15 at the time. Everyone else in the program was older and could drive themselves home. At the end of the day, all the other interns got picked up or headed out, and I was left waiting on the corner for my parents. 2 of my supervisors decided to wait with me since it was getting dark. There was Jim, a stricter, more intense boss who always gave me a slightly unsettling feeling, and Joe, an older, calmer, genuinely kind guy. Jim said he had a bad feeling about the evening and didn't want me standing out there alone. We'd been waiting about 10 minutes when a rusty SUV rolled up to the curb right beside me. Inside was a tan, gray-haired man. He rolled down his window and without any hesitation claimed he was my uncle. He said my mom had sent him to pick me up and that I should get in his car. Instantly, I was terrified. My actual uncle lived in a completely different state, and there had been no mention of anyone but my parents picking me up. Both Jim and Joe turned to look at me, clearly concerned. They knew my mom was on her way. I froze and just shook my head again and again. The man kept insisting for what felt like forever, easily 15 minutes, telling me to get in the car, repeating that my mother had sent him. All of this while my 2 bosses stood right there. Finally, when it was clear I wasn't going anywhere with him, he made a quick U-turn and sped off. It was too dark and his plate was too dim for us to read. That alone was terrifying enough. A couple of days later, I was walking home from a bus stop when I saw the same SUV drive past me. I grabbed my phone and tried to take a picture, but the driver saw me do it and sped up, disappearing down the street. To this day, thinking about that encounter still sends a chill down my spine. When I was in high school, I was a pretty laid-back guy with a solid group of friends. We'd hang out at lunch and after school, nothing unusual. In my junior year, a new kid transferred in. His name was Brad. From the start, I couldn't stand him. He came off as arrogant and bored with everything. I had 2 classes with him, and all he did was sit on his phone. Teachers would call him out, but he clearly couldn't care less and skipped a lot. Whenever we had group projects and I ended up paired with him, he never did any work. He always had an excuse. One time he told us he couldn't do anything because his vaping unit had broken, like that was some critical emergency. I thought it was a joke, but he literally just sat there all period. I tried to avoid him. Somehow, though, he wormed his way into my friend group. I don't know how, but a few of my friends started hanging out with him. That meant I was forced to be around him more often than I wanted. The very first time we all ate lunch together with him there, he immediately started making fun of my shoes, trying to roast me in front of my own friends. It seemed obvious he was trying to impress them by putting me down. We just didn't get along. One day in gym class, it boiled over. We were playing floor hockey and I was in goal. Brad was on the other team. At one point, he literally picked up the entire goal and moved it to try to score. I got pissed, grabbed the goal and threw it back where it belonged. He got in my face, and it turned into a bit of a scene. Other students had to hold him back. It was less about the game and more about the fact we already hated each other. Not long after that, one of my friends told me Brad really hated me. I said the feeling was mutual. I tried my best to keep my distance, but he always seemed to find a way to pop up around us. One night, my friend Jamie texted me. He said he needed a ride and was over at the high school. He told me to come right away and said he'd buy me Taco Bell if I did. I didn't particularly feel like going out, but the school was less than 10 minutes away, and it didn't sound like a big deal. I told my parents I was giving Jamie a ride home and drove to the school. It was around 8:30 or 9 o'clock p.m. I pulled into the lower parking lot, the one a bit farther from the main building where you didn't need a parking pass. There was only one other car there. I parked and looked around for Jamie but didn't see him anywhere. I texted him, asking where he was. Right then, I heard someone call out from my left. I turned and saw Brad. He told me to get out of my car. I was already annoyed just seeing him there, but I stepped out anyway, thinking maybe Jamie was around and this was some weird misunderstanding. The second I was out, Brad's tone shifted. He walked right up, got in my face and made it clear he wanted to fight. He shoved me. I told him I wasn't going to fight him, that I was just there to pick up my friend. He shoved me again. I pushed him back. At that moment, another guy stepped out from behind what I now realized must be Brad's car, the only other car in the lot. I had never seen this guy before. He started walking toward me too, yelling and cursing. It became clear he was with Brad, 2-on-1. He closed in and punched me. I swung at Brad and hit him, but then the other guy came around and hit me from behind. I went down, and while I was on the ground, Brad stomped on my leg. Adrenaline kicked in. I scrambled up and started running as best I could on my injured leg. They both charged after me. Somehow, I managed to outrun them and headed toward a grassy area next to the school, then off campus and into the woods behind it. It was dark and I could barely see, but I kept going, branches scraping me as I stumbled through. I could hear them crashing around behind me, calling out and looking for me. After a while, their voices got farther away. I hid behind a big tree and stayed as quiet as possible. I waited there for about 5 minutes. When I no longer heard them, I cautiously made my way back toward the parking lot. Both cars were still there, but I didn't see either of them. Not wanting to risk anything, I sprinted to my car, jumped in and drove home. When I got back, I texted Jamie and tore into him for setting me up. He claimed he didn't know Brad was going to attack me and swore he didn't know the other guy at all. He said Brad had just told him what to text me, and he went along with it because Brad had said he really wanted to talk to me. I didn't respond. None of that made it okay. Over the next few days at school, I noticed something. Brad wasn't in any of my classes. I didn't see him in the halls either. He never showed up again. I don't know if he dropped out, got expelled, or transferred, but he was simply gone. And that was just fine with me. That's all the stories for today. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for sticking around. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing if you haven't already. Your feedback really helps the channel, and I always appreciate hearing what you think down in the comments. If you'd like to send in a story of your own or contact me for any reason, you can find links to my social media in the description below: Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter. Feel free to message me on any of those, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you submit a story, please include a title if you have one, what type of story it is, and how you'd like to be credited in the video description. Try to include as much detail as you're comfortable with, and use the best grammar and spelling you can so your story has the highest chance of being featured. That's about it for now. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a great day.